Hello everyone and welcome back. We have the Blacktron Cruiser. This is set 40580, 356 pieces. You know, a nice throwback set for Lego to do again. It's interesting getting some of these older style sets or older reimagined sets, and being able to redo some of these ones I never really put a lot of thought in when I was a kid. You know, we'd get some of these and we'd tear them apart and put them, whatever. And then, through the course of the years, you kind of lose all the pieces. So, very fun to get back into having some of these. Now, this is, I believe, is one of their immersion sets or something like that. It's not one of their standard set types. I don't know if they're going to keep continuing this all along the same line of having the old cruiser that they had. Christ, we did that one a while ago. It's been sitting there collecting dust next to the rabbits. So it's fun getting these, to be able to have these again and being able to see what we had at one point. All the reimagining of our own childhood as we go along. All right, so we do have out of this different three sets of bags. There's three, there's two. Here's a 1, 2. Here's another 1. Here's another 2. All right, so we have this all done in 3 different groups. So we just kind of go from there. And I'll grab my watch off because that's going to drive me nuts. Unfortunately, I got a newer watch. My old one was kind of going to pot on me, and this one will light up and not light up and do whatever. So it's just kind of trying to learn how dumb a smartwatch really is. Okay, so we do have what if I turn this over, 7 different types of stickers here. Of course, we have 2 for 1. We have 2 for a control panel, 6 for something else here, 3, 7, 4, and 5. So I think we can kind of see where some of these are going, and we'll kind of go from there. It is a simple build here. Looks like a nice setup for a shuttle. Getting into a lot of the space stuff here lately. We have some new Lego set or some new Star Wars sets. Although I do have a jungle set that we will get into, and some others. It's just trying to multitask and get everything done throughout the week, as well as work a full-time job. So sometimes it just gets a little chaotic, a little bit more chaotic than I really intend it to be, but it just is what it is. All right, so we're going to get into putting this one together, 356 pieces. Hopefully this doesn't take too long, and we will go from there. Now, like I said, we have like 3 bags for 2, 2 bags for 3, and 3 bags for 1. We'll see how well this goes, how fast this gets put together, and you guys will see an elapsed timetable of all of this, and we will move on from there. All right, let's get into this. All right, so we are done. So, looking at what we have here, we do have one of the old classic style works of a robot. So, it's leaning forward a little bit more than what what the old ones originally would have. They would have been straight up. Actually, to be honest, quite often what they did for the robots is, and we have some of the pieces here, they're actually buried right in here, where it's kind of indented on the one side and it's flat on the other three sides here. We would actually have the two of them together, and we would have one of those hinge pieces, and we would actually have it that way for our feet, and then we would just kind of go from there. Now I do have some extra pieces, so I don't know if I want to put that as a face on there or something like that, but it's not bad. It's a small little version of the old robots. Not quite exactly what I remember, but pretty close. Like I said, I mean, it was a little bit thicker. It was 2 blocks wide, 2 1x1 blocks wide. And of course, it had the hinge on the bottom. And then we had our 2-to-1 kind of brick plate that would kind of choke this up, and then we'd have this on the top. And quite often we would even have the antennas or whatever on the side as well. But not bad. Now this going as a nice throwback piece, we do have some of the newer technology in here, especially on how this all kind of breaks away, kind of like what they do with the modern cars and all that stuff. Not a bad take. I don't remember any of this from way back then, but it's fine. It works. It gets us pretty close. This opening up like this, not too bad. These used to be different plates that we would use on this. And I put our little black bricks in here for their money or whatever ores that they're trying to get. And of course we have a spot in here for our secondary crewman to kind of sit in here somehow. And still goes down. We can close that up and we're good to go. And if I want, because the way it's modular, I can take this off and I can put it back there. Now, the funny thing is I do remember this is one of the theories that they had for engines at the time, that we would kind of do a little solar collection and then be able to kind of push that along or so. Kind of like an ion drive in a way or whatever. The old theories is really what it kind of comes down to. Today we look at it a little differently, whether it's right or wrong or whatever else, but it just kind of is what it is. Now this being able to kind of open up is kind of nice. We see a little bit of this stuff being done in our Ninjago sets, where they've really kind of gone out and done a lot of their own thinking again. And that's really some of the nice things about having their own series of stuff. They don't have to try to model it off of things that somebody else made. They're free to explore on their own and come up with their own designs. So this works out pretty well in that regard. And of course we have our blasters in the front here. And this is kind of nice. Now, you did see me fumble a little bit trying to get our our scanner, like a metal detector or whatever, trying to think of what we would call these in here, because I got bigger fingers, so it doesn't fit in here the greatest. But this is all done very nicely, and it's kind of nice because this is the old style seat in here, and they designed that because back then we had the air tanks in the back. So you'd be sitting here with your air tanks, and we needed to be able to get them to sit in a seat. So they came up with that special seat that we see in here. Very nicely done. Glad to see that coming back and being used again. Wonderful piece. Things that we haven't seen in quite a while. And it works very nicely in this. I'm not gonna mince words there. And having a little spoiler back here kind of works. Looks very nice. For a small set, nicely done. No real issues with it. Just kind of trying to get it all together. And of course, I'm getting kind of older. And of course, I've been fixing other things around the house. So unfortunately, my thumb after a while trying to get some of these pieces in here, just not working the greatest. And of course, I've been kind of working on something else, so it's a lot of putting it together, taking it apart, trying to revamp things as we move along, and trying to do things on my own. I'm not doing anything with CAD programs, where this is based off of an older design of how things were way back when. In my own childhood, back in the 80s, early 80s, mid 80s, coming up with these designs and all that. I don't remember if it was a modular thing at the time. I really don't, because I don't remember ever getting this. I do remember we had the Blacktron and some of the other ones. And there is a story behind all of these, which unfortunately I just don't know offhand. So that is something I should probably look up and try and get to us as we, there is one more set of these out there somewhere, and I'll see about trying to get that one together sometime soon. But this is the smaller version out of the two, and I was able to pick this one up. So very proud of myself for being able to do it, only for the simple fact of, stuff that harkens back to, being a kid. Now it's funny because when we think about how much this would have cost way back when, but these were things that I could have dreamt of, and my parents just got me more like the base, build and come up with your own ideas. So we had a lot of that stuff, more so than dedicated sets like this. Occasionally I'd get a police car or something like that, but not too many sets like this. My parents wanted us to come up and use our own imagination, so I give them credit. They were at least trying, but as a kid you're like, but I really want some of the stuff that even the kids today are still kind of saying to us as old timers, and we're like, well, wait a minute here. So but yeah, it's fun. Nice little set. Works really well. Yes, it's all nice and flat on the bottom. We can just have it kind of settle down on our floor. We can bring the character out, and then they can explore for whatever minerals or whatever that we're looking for, which is the big thing. I mean, with Lego, yeah, we had tensions and we had like cops and robbers and fires and stuff like that. But for the most part, yeah, there might be some fighting or whatever, but they try not to go too far into it. I think we, with our own imaginations, went a little farther than what they did. But, just having the fun out of it all. With that being said, thank you so very much for joining me today. It's always wonderful having you here. Hope you enjoyed seeing the Blacktron Cruiser here. I think it's still available on Amazon, which is where I find most of these things. I do know that next set, I can find that at my local Target. So this might be a set that you might be able to find at a Target. I don't know if you'll find it at a Walmart, and I don't know wherever else you might be able to shop to look for these, but it just is what it is. And wanting to take this apart just to kind of do this, trying to separate this simply because we can, and then we can have that for more of our fighter, while our scout, oops, okay, while our scout here is kind of looking for whatever he's got to look for. And everything's still kind of falling apart. Honestly, I think if I was doing this, I'd do this a little bit differently. I might swap these around so he can be up a little bit more and make this a little bit more the head. But that's me, and we'll see what I do here. But, I mean, he's kind of hunched over there like he's scouting for something, which is perfectly fine. And there you go. Something so you can kind of take care of what you have to do. Like I said, we have our little scout here, and we can kind of go on. All right. With that, we'll see you in the next video.